Hi, my name's Leah and welcome to Science Short Shorts, where I answer niche but necessary science questions. So if you've clicked on this video, chances are you've heard all about the COVID-19 vaccine that's being rolled out across the UK, and you've got some questions, maybe some concerns, and overall you're just feeling a bit bleh about the whole situation. And that's okay. It's okay to have questions. I wasn't sure if I should do this video because it's so far away from my area of expertise. I'm a physicist working as a fusion engineer, and I don't know anything about this. I'm not a vaccine researcher, I'm not a virologist, I'm not an immunologist, which is a word I only recently learned and I've only seen written down and I don't know how to pronounce.
Immunologist.
But I know people have a lot of questions and I'd like to help out if I can. So I sent my video notes off to real experts to make sure that everything that I tell you now is correct and accurate. So shout out to real life immunologists, Dr. Georgia Perona-Wright from the Centre for Immunobiology at the University of Glasgow, and Dr. Samantha Lasoma for all their help with this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the steps this vaccine went through to get approved in the first place, and all the factors that kind of affected it that got it approved so quickly, just to ease some concerns about how quickly it's been rolled out. So COVID-19 is a disease caused by SARS-CoV-2, which is a virus, specifically a coronavirus. Fun fact, corona means crown, and coronavirus is actually named as such because the little spikes that you see in pictures of them on the outside look like the little spikes on a crown. So coronaviruses were first identified in the 1960s, in humans specifically. And identified means that's the first time that we actually noticed it. They were in humans before, but the 1960s is when we were first like, oh yeah, that's a coronavirus. And coronaviruses in humans can cause respiratory infections. So that's anything that helps you breathe, like not just your lungs, but all the little bits attached as well. And these respiratory infections can cause more serious things like pneumonia and bronchitis, which means coronaviruses can be particularly dangerous. And some really dangerous coronaviruses have popped up in recent years. You've probably heard of MERS and SARS, and they've devastated the areas that they popped up in. So scientists started researching vaccines for these particular coronaviruses until these outbreaks went away on their own. People isolated and stopped the spread of the virus. So funding for the vaccine research kind of dried up, and the research dried up with it because people weren't willing to fund something that was no longer like a priority one health risk. So when it came to looking up a COVID-19 vaccine, there was all this prior knowledge on potential coronavirus vaccines that they could basically build on. And on top of that, there was all this funding and all these volunteers. And when you give a scientist lots of funding and lots of volunteers and lots of support, they can really achieve some amazing things. So scientists create a vaccine that they're pretty sure will work. All of their lab results kind of support that. So how do you go from a vaccine that you're pretty sure will work all the way to we're rolling this vaccine out, it's going to do some good things? Well, first and foremost, you have to prove your vaccine is safe for use in people specifically. There's no point rolling out a vaccine that causes more harm than it saves. You know, if it's got some horrible side effects, that's a bad vaccine. And secondly, you have to prove that your vaccine is effective. If you want to justify paying to roll out a vaccine, it's got to be able to actually do some good in that time, otherwise it's not a good vaccine. And to prove these two things, a vaccine has to go through loads of different steps, loads of different phases that are basically tests to show that it is safe and effective. And these steps can take 5 to 10 years, and a lot of that is spent looking for funding. So if you want to run a scientific study, you have to find someone to fund your research. You've got staff to pay, yourself to pay, equipment to pay for, you've got electricity to pay for in your lab. And for biomedical research, this funding cost is significantly higher because of all the safety aspects, all the extra people involved. So scientists spend too much of their time busy trying to prove that their research is interesting and useful and continuing to prove it throughout the study so that funders won't take their research away. With the COVID-19 vaccine research, people were funding it freely. Governments and businesses were keen to get a vaccine out, so the scientists could just get on with doing their job. So the first step is animal testing. And I know animal testing sucks, basically, but it's a really useful way of showing whether your vaccine behaves in the way you expected it to. So is it safe for use in animals, basically? And if it passes this stage, it moves on to phase 1. This is the first time it's basically given to people, and phase 1 is to prove whether a vaccine is safe. So this phase 1 trial is a base level for, hey, is this vaccine working the way we think it will? If it passes phase 1, it moves on to phase 2. Phase 2 is a demonstration of the efficacy of the vaccine. And efficacy is just fancy science word for effectiveness that they've just shortened down because they're too busy doing science for effectiveness. Gotta be efficacy. And during the phase 2 stages, they again use human volunteers and they sort of alter the doses, alter the timings to try and get the most effective version of the vaccine that they can. So it was during this stage that Pfizer BioNTech realized that 2 doses were basically more effective than 1. After passing phase 2, the vaccine moves into phase 3. Now, phase 3 is the big one. It's the one you'll have heard about in the news. You give the vaccine to a much bigger group of people to prove that it is both safe and effective. So a standard phase 3 study would use 300 to 3,000 people. The Pfizer BioNTech study used 43,000 people, which is a massive number of people. They had a lot of volunteers willing to get involved. Of these 43,000 people, the vaccine was given to half and the other half received a placebo. So that is, they were still injected, but it wasn't with the vaccine, it was just with something else. And that way you can compare COVID rates in the vaccinated group with COVID rates in the unvaccinated group, and the participants never know if they get the vaccine or not, so it doesn't change their behavior or anything. And they found that COVID cases in the vaccinated group were 95% lower than COVID cases in the unvaccinated group, which is basically a very effective vaccine. We regularly use vaccines that are nowhere near as effective as 95%, so it's doing a dang good job, basically. There were no serious side effects or complications. Participants reported having a bit of a sore arm, which makes sense because they were just injected, and feeling a bit feverish and a bit tired. And these are signs that your immune system is, for want of a better word, on, and that the vaccine is working in the first place. So these are fairly common side effects. Some people also reported feeling a bit headachy afterwards as well. Pfizer BioNTech wrote down their study and they sent it out to all the regulatory agencies all over the world. And it basically says, hey, we've got this vaccine. This is our report on how safe it is, how effective it is. Would you like to roll it out? And in the UK, it goes to the Medicines and Health Products Regulatory Agency, or MHRA, which I know doesn't quite add up, but we're going to roll with it. The MHRA is an independent governmental body who sets strict standards that vaccines have to meet to be used in the UK. And these are standards on like quality, safety, and efficacy. If a vaccine doesn't meet these standards, it's not considered safe for use in the UK. The MHRA are an internationally renowned organisation, and I say this because I've seen rumours online, and it's very unlikely the MHRA would lower its standards for this one vaccine that the government's a bit keen on. So, just putting that out there. Once it's rolled out, the MHRA will continue monitoring it in the population, looking for any rare side effects, anything a bit weird. That's actually phase 4. That's right, there was a secret phase in there at this point. And during phase 4, they can decide to withdraw their approval at any time. It's only temporarily granted anyway. So if MHRA detect anything that seems a bit weird, they can immediately say, we're no longer accepting this vaccine for use. So that's how this vaccine got approved so quickly. There was plentiful funding, prior knowledge to build on, and plenty of volunteers to help prove the safety of the vaccine. So should you get the COVID-19 vaccine when you get the opportunity. Well, that's a decision for you to make for yourself. I personally can't wait to get my vaccine. I have family members on the waiting list at the moment. I'm going to make sure I get both doses and I continue wearing a mask and social distancing, because this vaccine isn't going to get rid of COVID-19 overnight. It's not capable of doing that, even if we could, roll that out, give it to everyone in one go. But what it will do is it will bring the spread of the virus under control to let us keep more people safe. I hope this video helped answer some of your questions about the speediness of this COVID-19 vaccine. Thanks again to Dr. Perona Wright and Dr. Lesommer for all of their help with this. I've linked their Twitter bios below, as well as a link to a video on immunity and vaccines by the University of Glasgow that you should totally check out. I learned many things from it. It's a very interesting and very useful video. If you're interested in data trends and what scientists are currently recommending, I recommend checking out Independent Sage, whose Twitter is also linked below. They're an independent group of scientists whose whole deal is that they want to share data and free information without any of the politics. And they hold live meetings every Friday where they discuss the current data trends and stuff like that. And you can actually send in questions for them to answer live. So they're a super cool group and you should check them out. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click like below and you can subscribe to the channel via the orb. If you have science questions that you want answering, head over to the Leah Loves Science Facebook and Instagram pages, or leave them in the comments of this video and we will check them out. And if you want to see more videos like this, we have the Who Likes Science Short Shorts playlist right here. Bye!